Nobody remembers the first dead town. That's how these things begin now. Not with explosions or mushroom clouds, but with statistics. A few unexplained deaths in a trailer park outside Gallup, New Mexico. A county coroner saying respiratory failure. A hospital administrator quietly deleting records after a call from Washington. By the time people noticed, the rats had already crossed 3 borders. Frank Baresi used to break fingers for the Chicago outfit. Not the cinematic version, no expensive suits, no dramatic speeches. Frank was logistics, disposal, collections. He knew where bodies disappeared and how long bleach took to erase blood from concrete. Then the feds flipped him. In 2017, Frank testified against 6 men connected to a freight yard execution in Cicero. 3 bosses went down, 2 vanished before trial. 1 escaped to Sicily. After that, the government buried Frank and his wife Elena in witness relocation beneath the burning sky of Arizona. New names, new social security numbers, new lives. They ended up outside a dying desert town called Red Mesa. Population 812, if you counted the drifters sleeping in RVs. Their new house sat beside 20 acres of scrubland and an abandoned feed warehouse with a collapsing roof. Frank hated it instantly. Elena loved it. It's quiet, she'd said. Quiet places are where people bury things. She smiled anyway. At first they survived on relocation checks and Elena's bookkeeping work online, but money dried up fast. Frank couldn't hold a normal job. He scared people without trying. Too large, too watchful. The look in his eyes made cashiers nervous. The desert rats moved strangely. That's what Elena noticed first. They weren't afraid. Most rats scattered from headlights or footsteps. These didn't. They stood still beside the road, staring at passing cars with black, wet eyes that reflected silver under moonlight. One night, Frank hit one with a shovel. The thing kept twitching after its spine snapped. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. But Elena crouched beside it, fascinated. Look at the size of it. The rat was enormous, nearly cat-sized, thick muscles beneath hairless patches of gray skin. She had an idea. Within a year, Baresi Exotic Feeders, LLC, was shipping thousands of rats across the Southwest. Their animals bred at impossible speeds. Normal rats cannibalized each other under stress. These didn't. They nested in organized clusters, shared food, protected young communally. Elena called them the colony mind. They grew larger every generation, smarter too. Frank swore he saw one unlatch a cage. Another learned to mimic the sound of a squeaking hinge every night at exactly 2:13 a.m. until Frank finally opened the barn thinking someone was outside. There was nothing there except hundreds of rats staring silently from the rafters, watching. The first government contact came on a Tuesday. 2 men arrived in a white Ford truck with Department of Agriculture decals. Neither looked like farmers. One was blonde and military straight. The other never removed his sunglasses.
"How productive are these lines?" the blonde one asked. "Elena handles the books," Frank replied. "We're not asking her."
They toured the facility without asking permission. The blonde man picked up one of the breeder rats using thick leather gloves. The animal didn't struggle. It stared directly at him. "Interesting musculature," he murmured. Before leaving, the man handed Frank a card with only a phone number embossed into black plastic. "No more independent sales," he said. "You'll receive approved distribution routes from now on." Frank felt cold. "Who the hell are you?" The man smiled slightly. "People who kept you alive." That night, Frank dug through old contacts and found a retired federal marshal named Donnelly, who'd once handled his relocation paperwork. Donnelly answered on the 3rd ring. When Frank explained the visitors, the old marshal went silent. Then he whispered, "Burn the farm. Leave tonight." The line went dead. The next morning, Donnelly was found in his apartment bathtub with both wrists cut open. Officially, suicide. Frank knew better.
Elena refused to leave. "We finally have money. You didn't see those guys. You're paranoid." Frank grabbed her arm harder than he meant to. "They know who we are. You're paranoid." That stopped her. Not because she feared prison, because witness relocation identities were only compromised for one reason. Someone high up wanted them exposed.
Every night at exactly 3:11 a.m., all activity ceased simultaneously. Thousands of rats frozen motionless, silent, facing the same direction, northwest, toward Nevada. Elena recorded it once on her phone. When she played the footage back later, there was a faint sound underneath the silence. Not squeaking, breathing, human breathing. Hundreds of overlapping breaths.
Then the sickness appeared. Small at first, a teenager in Flagstaff coughing blood, a Navajo family dying within 48 hours near Farmington. Doctors suspected hantavirus, but the progression made no sense. Hantavirus wasn't supposed to spread human to human efficiently. This did. People drowned in their own lungs. Healthy adults vomited in grocery stores. Children suffocated overnight. The CDC quarantined counties quietly. Then Las Vegas hospitals overflowed. Then Phoenix. Then San Diego. Then Los Angeles. And always. Investigators found traces of rodent exposure. Pet snakes, feed stores, Barese exotic feeders, breeder shipments. Frank tried to shut the operation down. The next day, Elena disappeared. He found her that night sitting inside the main breeding barn in total darkness. No lights, no phone, just sitting cross-legged on the concrete floor while rats crawled over her lap and shoulders. She looked up slowly. "They're listening now," she whispered. Frank backed away instinctively. "Elena, they made them immune." "What?" "The virus burns through everything else too fast, but not the colony. They altered them." Frank's stomach dropped. Who altered them? The people from Nevada. That night, she finally confessed. She smiled weakly. Months earlier, after the first government visit, the blonde man returned alone. Research partnerships. He offered contracts. Immunity. He told Elena the rats carried a modified viral strain developed decades earlier during classified Cold War biodefense programs. The original virus killed too quickly, too inefficient for weaponization. Generation after generation, the colony evolved alongside it. The virus became airborne, but the rats adapted. Stable, persistent, and the rats themselves became perfect reservoirs. Immune carriers capable of spreading it indefinitely without dying. "What did you do?" Frank whispered. Tears streamed down Elena's face. "I signed papers."
The truth came out slowly over whiskey and panic. The CIA had inherited abandoned bioweapons research after 9/11. Officially, it was defensive. Unofficially, they tested transmission modeling using animal populations near isolated reservations and border regions where deaths attracted little media attention. The Bareses were never random witnesses. Frank's relocation site had been chosen deliberately because the desert ecosystem already contained earlier experimental colonies. Their breeding business provided perfect civilian distribution. No oversight, no suspicion. Pet stores became vectors. Families took infected feeder rats home for reptiles. Escaped rodents entered sewer systems. Then wild populations, then ports, then cargo ships. And because conspiracy theorists had spent years screaming about lab leaks and government plagues, nobody believed the real warnings anymore. Truth drowned in paranoia. Exactly as intended. The ground moved. Not metaphorically. Moved. A living carpet of rats swarming across the desert beneath moonlight. Tens of thousands, maybe more, all flowing westward in organized rivers, toward highways, toward cities, toward people. Frank realized then the worst part wasn't the virus. It was the intelligence. The colony was adapting. Learning routes, learning migration, learning humanity. They heard helicopters around dawn, black ones, no markings. The first explosion hit the barn. Fire rose instantly. But instead of fleeing, the rats poured outward in coordinated waves through drainage ditches and culverts as if anticipating the attack, like they'd rehearsed it. Frank dragged Elena toward the truck. Then he saw them. The rats had formed a circle around the house. Still, watching. Thousands of black eyes reflecting dawn, and in the center stood one massive pale rat nearly the size of a dog, its skin furless and scarred, pink tail coiling behind it like a serpent. It looked directly at Frank, then it opened its mouth and screamed. Not an animal sound. A human scream. 3 months later, the first cases appeared in Tokyo, then Rotterdam, then Lagos. Official statements blamed climate migration patterns among rodent populations. Governments denied weaponization. The death rate remained low enough to prevent full panic, but survivors changed. Neurological symptoms, insomnia, vomiting, compulsive hoarding behaviors, an irrational fear of silence. Nobody ever found Frank Barisi, or Elena, or the men from Nevada, but truckers driving through the deserts of Arizona still tell stories. They speak about seeing rivers of rats crossing highways under moonlight in perfect silence, about abandoned gas stations where thousands of tiny claw marks cover the walls, about hearing breathing inside empty buildings, and sometimes, if they stop long enough near Red Mesa, they hear something else drifting across the sand at exactly 3:11 a.m. Human voices whispering together beneath the earth, waiting, breeding, planning,